Hi, welcome to our channel where we share the most intriguing stories. He came for peace, not war, just a garage, some diesel, and a life off the grid. But when a power-hungry HOA forged documents to seize his land, they triggered a war they couldn't win. One man, 3 trucks, no rules. Welcome to the Torque Strip. Let the rebellion begin. I didn't move to Utah looking for a fight. In fact, I left the military and the chaos of overseas logistics because I wanted peace, diesel, and my damn garage. That was it. I had no dreams of HOA drama or suburban politics. All I wanted was a place to park my trucks, fix up an old Chevy with my dad, and enjoy my 4-car garage without anyone telling me what color mulch to use. The house I bought was a gem. Just under an acre of land, a beautiful driveway, enough room for all my gear, and best of all, no HOA. That's not an exaggeration. The real estate contract made it explicit. My property, along with a couple others nearby, stood outside the reach of the Northgate Palms HOA. No servitudes, no binding covenants, just freedom, dirt, and diesel. I had 3 trucks. Not 4, not 15, just 3. My daily driver was a beastly Ram 3500. The company hauler was a Ford Super Duty, legally registered, DOT compliant. And then, my pride and joy, a rust-stained but soul-filled Chevy C30 from the 70s that my dad and I had been slowly resurrecting since I got out. All 3 were operational, insured, and parked on my own land. Not the street, not a sidewalk, not even the edge of a shared curb. The first month was quiet, peaceful even. I met a couple neighbors, mostly pleasant folks. Larry, the guy next door, was a quiet, glasses-wearing retiree who used to work in civil engineering. He saw my Ram and gave a little nod of approval. We talked shop. He mentioned the HOA in passing, called the president an aggressive type, and gave me one of those side-eye grins people reserve for when they're talking about someone who can't hear them. I didn't ask for details, didn't care. I wasn't part of it. That was their circus. And then came the envelope. It wasn't mailed, no stamp, no return address. Just a white envelope tucked under the windshield wiper of my Ram, like some HOA ninja had crept up the driveway at night. Inside was a typed letter in all caps with a pixelated HOA emblem up top that looked like it had been printed on a toaster. You are in violation of the Northgate Palms Visual Uniformity Guidelines. Only 1 commercial vehicle allowed in view. Current violation, 3 industrial vehicles. Fines incurred, $500 per day, per vehicle. Remove excess vehicles immediately. No signature, no name, just HOA barking into the void. I laughed, out loud. Thought it was a prank at first. Took a picture and sent it to my dad with the caption, "Am I a menace now?" He wrote back, "If the trucks fit in your driveway, you're a goddamn American success story." But the next morning, it got weird. I was drinking my coffee on the porch, watching the sun creep over the mountains, when I noticed 2 people outside my fence line. Safety vests, clipboards, and those smug HOA expressions, like they'd been appointed by God to enforce property line righteousness. They were taking photos of my trucks, on my driveway, inside my gate. I walked over, calmly. "Can I help you?" I asked. The man ignored me. The woman didn't even blink. Then they walked up to the gate, my gate, and zip-tied a bright orange tag to it. Bold black letters. Notice, vehicles to be towed within 72 hours. Non-compliance will result in additional fines. That's when I stopped being polite. I stepped right up to the fence. "You got some paperwork for this?" The man replied without turning his head. "Recent boundary adjustments place this property within the jurisdiction of Northgate Palms HOA. You're in violation." I blinked. What boundary adjustments? It was ratified in last quarter's amendment. "You should have received notice." "No, I shouldn't have," I said, "because my property isn't part of your HOA." He finally looked at me. "Sir, this isn't something we need to argue about." "Good," I said. "Then don't argue. Just leave." They left, eventually, but not before snapping a few more photos like I was some rogue junkyard operator. I didn't wait. I immediately called my real estate agent, a sharp woman named Denise, who didn't tolerate nonsense. She pulled up my closing documents and emailed them to me within the hour. "Nope," she said over the phone. "No amendments, no annexation, no filings of inclusion. You're clean." They're bluffing. Probably trying to scare you into compliance. I believed her, but that didn't change the fact that some HOA zealots just tagged my gate like I was operating a chop shop. By sunset, I had 3 signs up. Private property, no trespassing, not subject to HO. I installed a motion-activated floodlight near the trucks and posted trail cams around the perimeter. I've worked too hard for some HOA Napoleon to tell me how many wheels I'm allowed to have on my own land. They thought I was just another quiet homeowner. They had no idea who they were dealing with. The first cop who showed up looked like he'd just walked off a recruiting poster, square jaw, mirrored sunglasses, and the kind of body language that said, "I really don't want to be here, but I'm being professional about it." He stepped out of the cruiser, glanced at the orange tag still zip-tied to my gate, and shook his head like he already knew this was going to be some HOA nonsense. "Morning," he said. "You're the one who called?" "Yeah," I replied. "Name's Declan Bryce. That's my property. Those are my trucks. And those signs," I pointed to the no trespassing placards, "went up after a couple clowns showed up this morning and told me my land had been annexed by some magical HOA boundary." The officer nodded, flipped open his notepad. "They force entry?" "No, but they sure acted like they had the right. Tagged my gate, took pictures, threatened to tow my vehicles. Said I'd been absorbed into their HOA. He raised an eyebrow. "You got paperwork?" I pulled out the folder Denise had emailed me the night before, printed, highlighted, notarized, and handed it over. "Freehold parcel, no servitude, no deed restrictions, no HOA membership," I said, maybe a little too proudly. He skimmed it. "Yeah, looks like you're clean. This is your driveway, your land, and they got no authority on this side of the line." Then he turned to his partner, who had been quietly snapping photos of the HOA tag and the surrounding area. "You get all that?" "Yep," she said. "Documented." Just as I was feeling the tension bleed off, a Lexus SUV rolled up to the end of my driveway like it owned the place. It didn't stop at the curb. It rolled halfway up the gravel and halted like a lion marking territory. The driver door swung open, and out stepped a woman in heels, tailored blazer, and enough perfume to kill a small bird. Her blonde bob was so sharp it could have sliced drywall. She walked like she'd already won whatever argument was about to happen. "You've got to be kidding me," she said, marching up like we had an appointment. "Why is there police here?" The officer stepped between us before I could open my mouth. "Ma'am, do you have business on this property?" She blinked. "I'm Karen Molina. I'm the elected president of the Northgate Palms Homeowners Association, and yes, I most certainly have business here." He stayed neutral. "Do you have any legal claim to this land?" Her smile turned sour. "Excuse me." "You're not excused," I said flatly. Karen shot me a dagger glare. "This property has recently been incorporated into the Northgate Palms HOA district per boundary extension and visual zoning ordinances. That makes it subject to community standards." "Bullshit," I snapped. "Show me the filing. Show me a signature. Show me a damn vote. Otherwise, get off my driveway." Karen took a breath. You know the kind. The slow inhale, where they try to summon all their Karen powers. "It is our duty to preserve the aesthetic integrity of our community. Your industrial trucks create visual pollution. This isn't some roadside truck stop. This is an elite neighborhood." I actually laughed. "Lady, I have more invested in those trucks than most people do in their homes. And last I checked, owning reliable work vehicles isn't a crime." She turned back to the cops. "Are you going to allow him to intimidate me like this?" The male officer closed his notepad. "Ma'am, this is private property. This gentleman's legal documents are in order. If you continue to approach his property without cause, it could be considered harassment or trespassing." Karen's mouth opened, then closed again. She turned beet red, muttered something about lawyers and standards, then strutted back to her Lexus like she had somewhere more important to be, which was probably a mirror. After she left, the officer stuck around another 10 minutes. We filed an informal complaint to get the incident on record, just in case this escalated further. Spoiler, it did. The next morning, an envelope showed up in my mailbox. This one had a return address and everything, official HOA stationery, signature from their treasurer, and a printed notice of violation. Not just a warning this time. A real, actual citation with a date, a code reference, and a threat of legal action if I didn't bring my property into compliance with community visual uniformity standards. I faxed it straight to my attorney. 2 hours later, I got a call back from Mitch, a guy I'd worked with before when I bought the company fleet. He didn't mince words. "This is a forged boundary claim," he said. "I just checked with the county recorder's office. No zoning change, no easement, no annexation. And get this, they submitted a new parcel map showing your lot as part of their jurisdiction. Wait, I said, how the hell? It's not valid. They're trying to force inclusion, and Declan— What? One of the signatories on the map? A guy named Richard Halliday. I paused. I know that name. You should. He's the developer who originally built Northgate Palms. And he died 2 years ago. I felt my stomach tighten. You're telling me they used a dead man's signature? Unless he came back from the grave just to join the HOA board, yeah. I don't usually lose my cool. Military trained that out of me. But something about that, the sheer stupid boldness of it, made my jaw clench like I'd just been sucker punched with a clipboard. All right, I said. Time to hit back. By sundown, I'd filed an official complaint with the county's Department of HOA Regulation and Oversight. I uploaded scans of the fraudulent map, the fake signature, and the violation notices. Mitch followed up with a preliminary complaint to the district attorney's office for suspected document forgery. The ball was rolling. And Karen had just declared war on the wrong damn driveway. I thought Karen had pulled every dirty trick she had. I was wrong. Less than a week after I filed complaints with both the county and the DA's office, things started to feel off. Subtle things, the kind of stuff you don't notice until you do, and then you can't unnotice it. Like the unmarked sedan that started parking just outside my fence line around dusk. Same spot, same time, every evening. Sometimes with one person inside, sometimes two. No plates in the front, tinted windows. They didn't knock, didn't say a word. Just sat there, watching. At first I figured it was some real estate looky-loo or a nosy neighbor, maybe even HOA brass checking if I'd cracked. But then I started spotting them during the day too. Different vehicles, same pattern. Park, idle, wait, leave. Sometimes I'd catch a camera lens sticking out of the passenger window. Once, I spotted a guy standing by my mailbox pretending to tie his shoe, but wearing a tactical earpiece and military boots that weren't regulation anything. It didn't take long to confirm what I suspected. The HOA had hired a private investigator. Amateurs. I'm a logistics man. I track convoys across war zones. You think I can't outmaneuver a couple of HOA goons with GoPros and an unhealthy obsession with beige siding? I rewired my security system, added extra perimeter cams with cellular backups, and rigged a motion-triggered trail camera aimed directly at the driveway entrance. Within 72 hours, I had full footage of one of their guys leaning over my fence line, trying to stick a damn GPS tracker under my Ram. Not smart. Especially when I pulled the unit and found his initials etched inside the casing, probably so he wouldn't lose it. I handed everything to Mitch and also filed a local police report just to have it on record. The officer on duty said, "This is the third complaint this month against Northgate Palms." I asked what the other ones were for. He just shook his head. They get ambitious. But this was more than ambition. This was an attempted siege. So I decided to counterattack. Mitch, being the beautiful bastard that he is, introduced me to a real estate attorney named Gloria Salazar. Sharp eyes, sharper suit, the kind of woman who could ruin your credit score just by making eye contact. She offered to do some digging on the HOA's financials. "Off the books?" I asked. Discreetly, she said. "Let's call it proactive due diligence." A week later, she called me sounding unusually cheerful. "You'll love this," she said. "Turns out your favorite little HOA has been cooking their books." My ears perked up. "Go on." "They've been submitting falsified reports to the city, underreporting property tax obligations by rolling some of their communal budget into infrastructure costs that don't exist. How the hell does that help me? It doesn't, but it helped the city. Meaning they caught on, quietly. And several homes within the HOA are about to be auctioned off for unpaid taxes." I sat up straighter. "How many?" "3 that I can confirm. Possibly more if the city decides to expedite. And they haven't told the HOA. Not yet. The letters were sent to individual owners. HOA's treasurer never disclosed it. My guess? Embezzlement." I blinked. "You telling me I can buy property in that neighborhood?" She didn't even hesitate. "You telling me you're ready to go full villain?" I didn't laugh. I just said, "Set up a trust." That night, I registered SkyTrail Heritage Holdings, a shell trust out of Nevada with legal anonymity protections. Gloria handled the filings. Mitch lined up a local agent who would bid on my behalf at the county tax auction. I didn't want Karen or anyone else catching wind of what I was doing. I had 3 targets: one house on the eastern edge of the neighborhood with a massive garage and vacant lawn, another mid-block across from the HOA's main office, and one very special house directly facing Karen's property, a modern 2-story with floor-to-ceiling windows and just enough land to fit, say, 3 gleaming trucks under full spotlight. Winning the bids wasn't hard. No one else showed up to fight for them. I got all 3 for less than the price of a new Kenworth. A week later, the deeds were in the name of the trust. A month later, renovations began. Each property had a purpose. The corner house? Transformed into a private office for my logistics company, fully branded, zoned, and permitted. Trucks in and out, deliveries scheduled, nothing illegal, just visible. The mid-block one became a retro diesel restoration garage. Sign out front, veteran-owned, by appointment only. And the house across from Karen, that one I reserved for something special. It got a full power wash, a new lawn, and a custom-built LED sign installed on the balcony. Welcome to the free zone. No HOAs, no bullshit, just torque. Oh, and I parked the Ram, the Ford, and the Chevy C30 right out front, all lined up, shine to a blinding gleam. Every morning, a new rotation. Every night, lit like a monument. Karen didn't knock. She didn't need to. Her face said everything. The first sign that Karen was about to implode wasn't a lawsuit or a visit from a county official. It was the sound of diesel. Specifically, my Ram 3500 roaring to life across the street from her flower beds just as the sun rose over Northgate Palms. I let it idle for a full minute before easing it into position beneath the custom-fabricated carport we built on the newly acquired property. That wasn't just any driveway. That was now Company Vehicle Staging Area Alpha, according to the county permit, nailed to the side of the garage in laminated plastic. The other 2 trucks arrived by the end of the week. The Ford Super Duty rolled into the side lot of our new restoration garage, complete with polished signage, motion-triggered LED lights, and a flagpole flying both the American flag and one that read, "Noise is freedom." The Chevy C30, my old rust bucket turned showpiece, got the front and center slot right under the neon sign that faced Karen's house like a smirking middle finger. Welcome to the free zone. It didn't take long. By the following Monday, the HOA held an emergency board meeting. I wasn't invited, of course, but I had ears, and a friend in landscaping whose cousin handled HVAC for the community center. Word got back fast. Karen lost it in front of a dozen people. She's ruining our aesthetic. He's turning the block into a trucking depot. He's commercializing the neighborhood. All technically true, all entirely legal. Every property I owned sat outside the HOA's jurisdiction, verified and filed. No servitudes, no architectural restrictions, all permits approved. And because the HOA had failed to record its enforcement zones properly, a little detail Gloria confirmed with a smug PDF from the city planner's office, they had zero say in how I landscaped, painted, parked, or decorated anything. Karen tried to fire back. First came the leaflets, glossy little flyers left on doors and slipped into mailboxes. Protect our neighborhood. Oppose commercial intrusion. Join the fight to preserve Northgate Palms. There was even a photo of my trucks, zoomed in and desaturated to make them look sinister, like I was running a meth lab out of a mobile diesel repair shop. Next, she petitioned the city to declare my properties as violating area visual harmony laws. She cited fictional statutes, including something called residential coherence doctrine, which, spoiler, doesn't exist in Utah or possibly on this planet. When that failed, she resorted to old-school harassment. Fake complaints to the fire department, noise violation calls. The cops came once, chuckled, and left. She even tried to get my Ford towed during a community parade, except the tow company refused when they saw it was legally parked on private land with active commercial plates. So I escalated, not with violence, not with shouting, with flawless paperwork and even better lighting. We installed landscape uplighting around all 3 trucks, illuminating them in patriotic red, white, and blue at night. We invited a local veterans motorcycle group to do a photo shoot with the Chevy. We added tasteful fencing with private, not subject to HOA placards every 20 feet. We even installed public benches on the curb outside the restoration shop, offering free coffee for delivery drivers. Then came my favorite move. I applied for and received a local small business improvement grant from the county. Yep, the state of Utah paid me to add signage, better driveways, and public access sidewalks around my properties. That money went straight into turning my corner lot into a public showcase. The final touch. A custom mural across the side of the garage, an American eagle gripping a ratchet wrench, flying over a convoy of trucks with bold lettering underneath. Independence isn't a crime. You could see it from Karen's upstairs window. I know because she called the cops. Again, they didn't even get out of the car this time. Eventually, the HOA's own members started getting confused. The line between HOA jurisdiction and free zone was now a physical, visible border. Where once there were uniform lawns and beige shutters, now there were trimmed hedges, colorful banners, parked trucks, and people actually smiling in public. The vibe was changing. Some folks stopped by to ask about the restoration shop. One guy asked if we were hiring. A mom with 2 kids asked if her boys could sit in the Chevy for a photo. I let them climb in and even let the oldest honk the horn. Karen saw it happen. She was walking her dog, a trembling, over-groomed Shih Tzu in a sweater, when she stopped across the street, mouth half open, watching kids laugh in front of the truck she'd spent months trying to banish. We locked eyes. She didn't say a word. She just turned, yanked the dog's leash, and power walked away, like the sidewalk had personally betrayed her. I wasn't gloating. Okay, I was absolutely gloating, but I was doing it legally, tastefully, and with county-issued tax incentives. Because here's the thing about people like Karen. They think control is their birthright, that neighborhoods should bow to their vision boards. But when faced with someone who plays by the rules better than they do, they crack. And Karen, she was starting to crack wide open. I got the lawsuit in a manila envelope, hand-delivered by some teenage process server who looked like he'd rather be anywhere else. He muttered, "Sorry, man," like he was dropping off a breakup letter. I didn't blame him. The document inside had the kind of desperate energy usually reserved for exes and reality show contestants. Karen had gone full legal nuclear. The HOA, or at least what was left of it, had filed suit in county civil court claiming I was violating community aesthetic standards, damaging neighborhood cohesion, and, my personal favorite, engaging in intentional and malicious visual sabotage. That last one almost made me spit my coffee. They wanted the court to prohibit me from parking more than 1 vehicle per property, force the removal of all signage referencing freedom, diesel, or anything anti-HOA in tone, shut down my business licenses for non-compliant neighborhood use, and, get this, order me to cease all diesel-related activities. Diesel-related activities. That's how you know they were flailing. You don't write that with confidence. You write that when your world's unraveling and you think maybe, just maybe, a judge will save you from a guy with 3 trucks and a county permit. Mitch and Gloria were already 3 steps ahead. We prepped the response, filed a motion to dismiss, and added a counterclaim: defamation, harassment, property interference, and malicious prosecution. The judge didn't throw it out immediately. He wanted to hear it in court, but based on the tone of the preliminary hearing, even he seemed skeptical. On court day, I wore my best boots and a charcoal gray blazer that still smelled faintly like transmission fluid. Karen arrived with a lawyer who looked like he billed by the scowl. She wore pearls. Of course she did. The hearing wasn't long, but it was spectacular. Karen's attorney tried to paint me as a rogue operator, someone intentionally undermining the neighborhood's culture. He brought up photos of my trucks, the mural, even the kids taking photos on the hood of my Chevy like it was evidence of terrorism. He kept using words like disruption and disgrace. Then Gloria stood up, calm as a glacier, and demolished every point with surgical precision. She presented the property lines, the county zoning maps, the business permits, the city's own grant approvals, and most importantly, the HOA's own declaration, signed years ago, which explicitly stated that properties outside the original covenant zone could not be annexed without voluntary owner consent. Then came the kill shot. Gloria pulled out the modified parcel map that Karen's HOA had submitted earlier, the one with the dead developer's signature. She laid it gently on the table like a hunting trophy. The courtroom went still. "Your Honor," she said, "this document was used to justify jurisdiction over my client's property. It is fraudulent. The man listed as signing this amendment passed away over 2 years before the date listed. We've confirmed it with the county registrar. This map was never formally reviewed or recorded, and no notifications were sent to the impacted landowners. The judge raised his eyebrows. Is this true? Karen's attorney shuffled his papers. We were operating under the assumption. The judge held up a hand. Did your client or any member of the HOA submit this map, knowing the signature was invalid? Karen stood up. Bad move. She snapped. It was symbolically signed. We had his signature on file from prior filings. We needed consistency. The judge stared at her like she'd just confessed to forging the Constitution. He looked back down at the folder. This is not symbolic. This is submitted as a legal boundary amendment. Then, almost as an afterthought, he added, and it's also a Class C misdemeanor. Silence. A few snickers from the gallery. I didn't smile. Not on the outside anyway. Within 10 minutes, the judge issued a partial ruling. The HOA had no authority over my properties. The lawsuit was dismissed with prejudice, and the court would refer the forged document to the district attorney's office for further review. Karen tried to protest again, but her own lawyer gently tugged at her sleeve and whispered something that made her turn the same shade as unpainted drywall. On the courthouse steps, reporters were waiting. Apparently, someone tipped off the local news that a homeowner had been sued over diesel fumes and a mural. Gloria handled the cameras like she was born to do it. She gave a short, clear statement. Today's ruling is a victory for individual property rights and a reminder that homeowners associations are not above the law. But the best part? 2 of the HOA's own members came up to me afterward, quietly. One of them shook my hand. The other just muttered, "You did good." Later that evening, while nursing a whiskey and watching the LED sign on the garage pulse through the twilight, I got a text from Mitch. Check your email. You're gonna love this. I opened the message. Attached was a real estate summary. 9 more homes in the Northgate Palms district had entered pre-foreclosure status, mostly due to unpaid dues, delinquent taxes, or disputes involving the HOA's financial mismanagement. And guess who had the first right to bid on every single one? The trust. Sky Trail Heritage Holdings. Karen had tried to sue me into silence. Instead, she'd opened the door to her own kingdom. The thing about a crumbling empire is, once a crack forms, everything starts to split. You don't need to swing a hammer. You just need to know where to press. Karen's defeat in court didn't just humiliate her, it exposed the HOA's soft underbelly. Financial mismanagement, procedural violations, a long list of disgruntled residents who'd been too afraid or too polite to speak up. But now they had a rallying point. Me, or more precisely, my trust. Within 2 weeks of the ruling, Sky Trail Heritage Holdings quietly acquired 5 more properties through county auctions and distressed sales. Gloria and Mitch handled everything. Offers made fast, clean, and above market. We didn't force anyone out. Quite the opposite. Some of the sellers actually thanked us. I let one of them stay as a tenant at reduced rent. Another left cookies and a handwritten note that said, "About time someone stood up to her." Then came the big move. 12 homes, strategically located, flanking both entrances of the HOA neighborhood, lining the central corridor, and, my personal favorite, the house directly behind Karen's. That one was a ranch style with an enormous backyard and line-of-sight access to her master bedroom window. I built a flagpole there, 50-foot steel, American flag on top. Beneath it, a custom black banner with bold white letters, "Park where you pay, live free," lit by solar floodlights, visible from every angle. I didn't need to say anything to her anymore. Every house we bought spoke louder than words. But this wasn't just about parking trucks or slapping up signs. It was about leverage. Under Utah law, specifically Title 57 Community Association Act, any property outside the original restrictive covenant zone is not subject to HOA authority unless expressly incorporated through proper legal process. That includes public hearings, owner approval, and recorded amendments. Karen's HOA had skipped all of that. So when I filed the Declaration of Disassociation for all 12 homes, notarized, recorded, and accompanied by copies of the judge's ruling, there wasn't a damn thing the HOA could do. Each declaration included a clause stating that any further attempt to enforce HOA rules on these properties would be considered harassment under civil code. And just to twist the knife, we had a courier hand-deliver each copy directly to the HOA board during their monthly meeting. According to a neighbor who watched from across the street, Karen turned ghost white, then tried to claim it was illegally notarized. The courier, bless him, replied, "Ma'am, I just deliver them. But this one's got a court stamp." Of course, the fallout didn't stop there. 3 board members resigned within 72 hours. 2 homes had for sale signs up before the week was out. And suddenly, I wasn't the villain anymore. I was the guy who'd liberated a dozen homes from HOA hell. People started asking me how they could get out too. I didn't promise anything. I'm not running a movement. But I gave them Gloria's number and told them she eats HOA paperwork for breakfast. Meanwhile, Karen doubled down. She called an emergency visual compliance inspection, sent letters to residents warning them not to fraternize with disruptive elements, claimed I was trying to sabotage community values. That's when I knew she'd lost the narrative, because by that point, I wasn't even speaking. I let the homes do the talking. Each property had its own personality now. One had a chrome art installation, a giant welded piston statue titled Torque. Another hosted a monthly tools and tacos event for veterans and gearheads. The corner lot had become a kind of informal coffee stand. We called it Diesel Drip. I gave Larry, my quiet engineer neighbor, full access. He turned out to be a former Army Corps guy and built a rainwater system for the trucks. The HOA sent warning letters. We framed them and hung them in the garage. Karen tried one last stun, a drone flyover to inspect the properties. Her little quadcopter buzzed over my backyard like a metal mosquito. I waved at it, then pulled out a black powder signal gun and launched a flare so close it panicked and crashed into a juniper bush. The footage, by the way, ended up online, not posted by me, but by one of the residents. Captioned, HOA Karen's eye in the sky meets air superiority. The HOA called a town meeting. Karen stood at the front of the room, voice trembling, trying to rally what little control she had left. She talked about tradition, standards, and the threat of nonconformist ideology. Someone in the back asked, "You mean trucks?" No one laughed. No one supported her. That was the moment it all cracked. The vote was unofficial but symbolic. Of the remaining residents, only 2 wanted to stay under Karen's rules. The rest were open to exploring what they now called freedom transition options. I didn't gloat much. Instead, I went home, turned on the garage lights, and started working on the Chevy. I'd ordered a new chrome grille, and it had just arrived. As I bolted it into place, I realized something. I hadn't just beaten the HOA. I'd replaced it with something that actually served people. And Karen, she was now just another homeowner with no power, no leverage, and a diesel mural staring at her over breakfast. They say desperation makes people dangerous. That's true. But desperation also makes people stupid. And Karen had crossed that line with high heels and a vengeance. A month after I filed the declarations for all 12 properties, I got hit with a new lawsuit. This one came not from the HOA's lawyer, he'd already resigned, but from Karen herself, Pro C. That's right, she represented herself. The papers were a mess, spelling errors, incorrect citations. A printout of a zoning map she hand-annotated with red Sharpie. She was suing me personally, claiming that my trucks, signs, gatherings, and visual propaganda had caused her psychological distress, emotional whiplash, and, I swear to God, communal erosion. The filing demanded immediate removal of all commercial vehicles, elimination of signs containing the words freedom, diesel, or Karen, a permanent injunction against me holding any public gatherings, and a court-ordered apology for emotional abuse of an HOA representative. I read it twice to make sure it wasn't satire. Gloria was already 10 steps ahead. "We won't just crush this," she said. "We're going to burn it so deep that no HOA in the state will try this again for 10 years. She filed a countersuit within 48 hours, targeting Karen personally. Libel, property interference, false claims to jurisdiction, and abuse of the court system. She even petitioned for sanctions and mandatory psychological evaluation, citing Karen's erratic behavior and unauthorized drone surveillance. The hearing date was set, and this time the courtroom was packed. Local news showed up. A couple vloggers came with cameras. Even some former HOA members were there, sitting in the gallery with folded arms and the kind of expressions usually reserved for public executions. Karen showed up in a white suit, holding a binder so overstuffed it looked like it had been fed steroids. She looked like a politician in a bad Netflix pilot, poised on the outside but twitching at the seams. The judge entered, same one from the previous hearing. The moment he saw Karen at the table without counsel, his eyebrow ticked like a Geiger counter. He let her speak first. She launched into a 20-minute monologue that somehow referenced the Founding Fathers, the psychological effects of diesel fumes, and a coordinated anti-HOA insurgency. At one point, she tried to introduce a slideshow on a USB stick, and when the court clerk told her it wasn't allowed, she snapped, "This is censorship." The judge cleared his throat. "Ms. Molina, please sit down." She did, reluctantly, still muttering under her breath. Then Gloria stood up, calm, composed, dressed in black like it was a funeral. "Your Honor, we've submitted 73 pages of documented evidence, including signed declarations from neighbors, certified property lines, recordings of Ms. Molina making false jurisdictional claims, and footage of unauthorized drone surveillance, as well as a copy of the plaintiff's filing, which, respectfully, reads more like a blog post than a legal argument." She let that hang for a second. "But we're not just here to defend my client. We're here to make a correction." And that's when she dropped the hammer. Gloria presented an updated property ledger with notarized purchase documents from Sky Trail Heritage Holdings. It showed ownership of 16 parcels within the Northgate Palms HOA zone. That number wasn't random, it was a majority. The judge leaned forward. "Is this accurate?" "It is, Your Honor," Gloria said. "As of 9 a.m. this morning, Sky Trail Holdings holds a controlling property interest in the neighborhood. We are submitting a formal declaration of voluntary withdrawal from the HOA for all properties under our ownership. According to state law, that is fully legal and binding." The room buzzed. Karen looked like someone had poured cold diesel down her spine. But that's manipulation," she shrieked. "You're buying control. That's hostile occupation." "No, Ms. Molina," the judge said. "That's called ownership." And then, for good measure, he turned to her and said, "As for your filing, it borders on contempt. I am dismissing your case with prejudice. Furthermore, I am referring your actions to the state bar for review of your conduct and potential sanctions." Karen froze, absolutely still. Then quietly, like her brain had finally let go, she said, "This isn't fair." That's when I finally spoke. I stood, calm, clear. "You spent 6 months trying to take control of something that was never yours. You forged documents, harassed residents, and tried to force people to follow your rules. You didn't expect someone to push back." She turned to me, pale and trembling. "You can't just take over a community." I smiled. "I didn't take over. I joined it. The difference is, I didn't show up with threats. I showed up with trucks, paperwork, and neighbors who were sick of being bullied." The judge banged his gavel once. "This hearing is concluded." Outside the courthouse, reporters swarmed. Gloria gave her usual press statement. I just stood to the side, arms crossed, watching Karen stumble down the steps, avoiding the cameras, looking for the nearest shadow to hide in. She didn't find one, because now the whole damn street was lit. The HOA disbanded quietly. No press release, no farewell barbecue. Just a late-night email from the interim board that read, "Effective immediately, the Northgate Palms Homeowners Association will cease all operations due to loss of majority participation and legal viability." No one mourned. A week later, the HOA's website went dark. The sign at the neighborhood entrance, a sad little wooden thing that used to say Northgate Palms, a premier planned community, was quietly removed. No ceremony, no closure. Just one day, gone. Replaced, as it happens, by a steel sign welded in my garage. "Welcome to the Torque Strip." I didn't choose that name. The neighbors did. It started as a joke. Someone spray painted it on the sidewalk near the mural, and it stuck. One of the new owners made shirts. Another got license plate frames. People started leaning into it. Retirees installed custom mailbox flags. A teenager down the block started a YouTube channel called Life on the Strip. But the biggest shift? People smiled. Not fake. Plastic suburban compliance smiles, but real ones. Fences came down. Potlucks started up. Nobody cared if your grass was 2 inches too high or if your mailbox wasn't HOA beige. One guy turned his backyard into a tool-sharing station. Another opened up a Friday night barbecue for all the neighbors. Smoked brisket. No bylaws. The Freedom Zone wasn't a gimmick anymore. It was the new normal. And Karen, she sold her house. 2 weeks after the final court ruling, a moving truck pulled up. She didn't say goodbye, didn't leave a note. She was just gone. I heard later she moved to a different city. Smaller HOA, more exclusive. The kind where the bylaws are printed on linen and everyone pretends to enjoy committee meetings. She left behind a house I didn't buy. I didn't need to. It sold for under market value. Apparently buyers get nervous when the neighbors have murals of eagles holding socket wrenches. We turned it into something better. With Gloria's help, we acquired the property through a private partner and transformed it into a diesel heritage museum. Part exhibit, part community garage, part cafe, veteran-run, family-friendly, no admission fee. The centerpiece, my restored Chevy C30 polished to a mirror shine, sitting proudly beneath a giant quote, "Park where you pay, live where you want." Next to it, we mounted a framed copy of the original HOA violation letter, the one that started it all. Above it, a plaque that reads, "In memory of control, freaks everywhere." The city sent a rep during our soft opening. He looked around, took a sip of black coffee from the custom torque strip mugs we had printed, and said, "This might be the most efficient land use we've seen in this zip code in a decade." I smiled. "Tell that to the HOA." He laughed. "What HOA? Exactly, I still drive all 3 trucks, still park them wherever I damn well please. Sometimes in a row, sometimes diagonally. Not to make a point anymore, just because I can. And that's the difference. This isn't about diesel. It never was. It's about telling people like Karen, people who mistake paperwork for power, that their rules don't outweigh our rights. That land means freedom. That owning something gives you a voice. And knowing how to defend it makes that voice thunder. And every time a neighbor honks, waves, or drops off a cup of coffee at my garage, I remember one thing. It started with a single letter and ended with a street that runs on freedom and diesel.